Hello, Lorehounds listeners. This is the penultimate pre-Oscars episode of the Cinema Hounds Does the 2026 Academy Awards. Today, we're getting to some of the biggest categories, and most important to me, writing and directing. My guest for today is writer and photographer Katherine Oktober Matthews. Some of you may recognize her from last year's coverage of the live-action shorts categories or our coverage of the craft films on the Woolshift Dust feed. And we had a great conversation about these 10 nominated films in the three categories: original screenplay, adapted screenplay, and best director. I do, of course, as usual, if you have not yet, recommend starting with my and David's opening episode to the series, where we reacted to the nominees and previewed the 10 best pictures and talked about some of the biggest races and surprises and other anomalies of the season. But of course, I have also since then released dedicated episodes to the shorts categories: production design, costumes, makeup and hair, international film, documentary features, animated features, the music, with this year's Never Mind the Oscars music crossover episode, and the Tech Awards, not to mention the bonus episodes for the Indie Spirits and BAFTAs. And now we are up to writing and directing. Stick around until the end for what's up next, just one, and how you can join this year's live Oscar Watch chat. In this episode, we will be talking movie premises and productions, but as usual, we will avoid film spoilers, except we did decide at the end to add a post-credits spoiler discussion. You will see we're dancing around, trying not to spoil these films, and we just decided let's have another conversation at the very end after the outro and credits and everything, where we do spoil almost all the films, not Blue Moon or Frankenstein, because honestly, it's inherently difficult to spoil them. But we do talk about the endings of all the other films in that. There will be ample warning before we get to that. But for anyone who's interested, stick around until the very, very end. All right, let's jump into it. And welcome back, Katherine. So last year we talked live action shorts, and you've been my guest on Woolshift Dust, where we did a Spooktober special on the craft. So glad to have you back to the network for the third time.
Ooh, thank you. My pleasure.
You are a writer and photographer, for anyone who didn't get to listen to those other episodes. Please tell us more about your work. What are you up to? And I will be linking the things you're talking about and your website in the show notes for anyone who wants to learn more.
Sure. Most recently, I had a book that came out last year called Elsewhere, a personal essay in words and photos. And it was a combination of words and photos, black and white photography, and trade publication. So it's available pretty widely. And as well, I developed a original tool called the Emotion Mixer to help creators bring more emotional depth and nuance, and to as a formal tool of guidance to help people develop their creations.
And so, yeah, we used your Emotion Mixer to talk about the live action shorts category last year. So I'll put a direct link to that episode as well, because that was a lot of fun. We're not using it directly this year, but obviously we'll be digging into some of those points when we look at the writing in these films.
I love the study of emotion.
Yeah. And what is film if not, or writing at least? Now, so you're bringing a fresh perspective. I think most of my guests are death racers, and you are not a death racer. So for anyone who doesn't know, an Oscars death racer is someone who watches every single Oscar nominated film before the ceremony. And we're crazy people. So it's nice to hear from people who have a little more distance from these particular films that we've been obsessing over for a year now. What is your relationship with movies overall? Are you a film fan? Do you ever watch the Oscars?
I am absolutely a film buff, and I've always been super interested in movies, especially independent cinema. Let's say I would say that my watching has gone down over the last couple of years since having a kid.
Yeah,
That does definitely
happens.
take a toll on the ability to watch movies, especially in the theaters. But always been a film buff. I am not such a fan, or I don't give much street
Credence.
cred to the
Yeah.
Oscars. Just in general, not on principle or something, but just it hasn't really reflected my tastes in
Mm.
general.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think so. For Death Racers, there's been a lot of talk as we're getting closer to the ceremony in the death racing community. Like, why do we do this to ourselves? And it is because and it's not that we think that the Oscars are the end all be all of it. Because I will talk openly today about politics as we talk about these films and who's likely to win and things like that. That's definitely in play here, but it is there's so many thousands of films that release each year. This provides a curation that says, hey, pay attention to these filmmakers, pay attention to these films. And so that's why a lot of us do the death racing thing, is because sure, there's going to be movies that we don't really like. And I'm happy to say in these categories, we're pretty good. I'm mostly happy with these films. But it's a Smashing Machine, worst film of the year. Sorry. That was makeup. But yeah, it's forces us to watch things that we wouldn't otherwise watch. So I gave you your own mini death race of these three categories, which amounts to 10 films total. 8 of them are Best Picture nominations, and one of them we'll talk about is considered to have just missed that Best Picture nomination. So you are getting to see what the Oscars consider the creme de la creme for the most part, because I have to say the two I consider the weakest Best Picture nominations are the two that are not here,
Mm.
because I think you and I both probably care more about the writing than almost anything else in a film.
That may be true, yeah.
So what was your overall thought on these 10 films that you watched today? Which, again, I'll just give an overview, is Sinners, Marty Supreme, Sentimental Value, It Was Just an Accident, Blue Moon, One Battle After Another, Hamnet, Frankenstein, we already talked about Train James, Begonia. Which one did I miss? I forget which one I missed, but anyway, we'll talk about them. What did you think about them overall?
Overall, I was really taken aback or stunned by how much violence and gore was in these movies.
Mm.
Um, I guess I'm used to the idea of the big movies being an action or something like that, but it was really stunning. Like, so many of them were just so gory, so violent, and just like, yeah, it almost started to feel like a different category just because they were all so similar in that regard. There were a few that
Mm.
stood out, and I have to be honest that those are the ones I probably liked better than the rest.
That's fair. Yeah, I notice this is something we were talking about, particularly in the documentary and international categories. But I notice overall, we are obviously at a tough moment in global politics and existence on this planet. And I'm noticing that the selection of films reflects that. And I can't say that's inappropriate, but I understand the desire for, like, oh, what about escapism a bit? What about just talking about something else sometimes? And that's
Yeah,
why Blue
totally.
Moon's in here.
Sure, sure. I
Yeah,
mean, or even just family dramas like Sentimental Value.
sure. Yeah,
That
yeah,
was kind of a welcome reprieve, that it was just, let's say, ordinary family dynamics, even though it wasn't exactly ordinary.
right, right,
But just
exactly.
like, how many, like, what does it say about society that so many people think that entertainment has to involve a gun or
Yeah,
like
I mean, I
brutal
like I
murders
said,
and blood?
it is definitely, this is unusual for this year. It is, or it's more extreme this year for certain. And I really think that reflects just currently what people are most concerned with right now, and what people find maybe not this is not necessarily about what is the most entertaining films for the Oscars. It's about what do they think are the most important films for the moment. And I can understand why there's a lot of grappling with everything that's going on in them then in that regard. Let's get to the grappling. So let's start with, we're going to talk about original screenplay, then adapted screenplay, and then director. And so let's start with original screenplay. This is both screenplay categories were added to the ceremony in 1940, so about 11 years after it started. And this category, original screenplay, must not be based on any previously published material. So all sequels, remakes, adaptations all fall under adapted. It seems to be variable for, movies that are based on real people. Like they kind of just decide every year, and sometimes they decide differently than, for example, the Writers Guild of America. So it's kind of arbitrary sometimes, although I think in this case it's pretty clear for this year, which is original and which is adapted. And then the recipients are basically anyone with a written by, screenplay, or story by credits. And last year's winner, just to revisit, was Sean Baker for Honora, which I was happy with last year. And that was definitely that. That was more of an interpersonal thing, not like a geopolitical disaster. Unfortunately, this year there are no women in this category. This is kind of a theme that there's an underrepresentation of women in these categories. And Hamnet is the only one with any female nominees representing in the other two categories. So acknowledging it, moving on. Let's begin with my favorite, Ryan Coogler, nominated for writing Sinners, which is obviously, he's directed it as well. We've talked about this film a lot. I did a deep dive, which will be linked in the show notes. It got 16 nominations this year, setting a new record. So we already talked about it in Best Picture preview. Production design, costumes and makeup and hair, song and score, cinematography, VFX, editing and sound, director and original screenplay. We're talking about it today. And then we will discuss it again in supporting actress, and casting. And the plot is, it's about a pair of twins and their cousin who set up a juke joint in 1930s Mississippi, not realizing the local KKK is the least of their problems. It was not a cheap film, 90 to 100 million, but it made 369 million in the box office. So take that, naysayers. Obviously, it's considered one of the two biggest films of the year. Great reviews on Rotten Tomatoes and Letterboxd and everywhere else. You can watch it for yourself on HBO Max. It's 2 hours and 18 minutes long. And before we get into, I guess it's hard to separate them, but what did you think about the movie overall?
I thought it was really good. It started out, to be clear, all of these movies, not a single one did I do any reconnaissance in terms of like watching the trailers, reading up on them. I watched all of them absolutely blind.
Nice.
And so this one, really took me by surprise. It, of course, the movie twists during it, and we're not doing spoilers, so we
can talk about the surreal montage. I think that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. But it really, it took me by surprise is what I want to say. And that it started out in a very different place than where it goes. And so it still felt coherent, and it felt thematic, and it felt like a very rich world to live in, rich characters. I was a fan.
Did you know it was a vampire movie going in, or did you just find that out?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Awesome.
Halfway through
jealous.
It's a vampire movie, and I'm like, what? Wait, what? What did I sign up for? I didn't realize this. I shouldn't have started watching this so late in the night.
Yeah, and you watched through to the, for me, the thing that really makes this movie is that first credit scene where Buddy Guy's at the bar and talks to people. I'll just say talks to people.
Talks to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always afraid people are going to turn it off before that. Be like, oh, the credits have started. Like, no, keep watching.
Yeah. It's a little bit like an epilogue or something, but...
Yeah. But essential, it contextualizes the entire film for me. Yeah. So this is Coogler's third and fourth and fifth Oscar nominations, because he's also nominated for directors, we'll talk about today, and Best Picture overall. And he was previously nominated for Judas and the Black Messiah in 2020, and the Best Original Song, Lift Me Up, from Black Panther Wakanda Forever in 2022. And if he wins this one, he would be only the second Black winner in this category after Jordan Peele won for Get Out. So this category is not only bad at not honoring women, but good news is that he is likely to win. He has won 5 of the precursors, including Critics' Choice and the BAFTAs. He won actually the Writers Guild Awards for Original Screenplay yesterday, right before we're recording. You guys will hear this later in the week. It'll be a few days ago. So yeah, he is likely to win. Are you a fan of any of his past movies? Like Creed or Fruitvale Station? Or?
I haven't seen them.
Okay. So this is your first Black Panther.
Are they in the same gestalt, or?
I mean, you can. To be honest, I have not watched the Creed movies. I know that's a blank spot I need to catch up on. But his other films are. I mean, you can see that this one is. So he started as an indie director. And then, he started doing things with Marvel, the Black Panther series. And you can see that this film is kind of a marriage of the two sides that he experienced there. And he's, pulled together all of his best team from both. And from, he went to college with the composer, Ludwig Göransson, which that is a collaboration made in heaven, the music. So yeah, it's sort of a realization of all of these things he's done. And Creed is also, of course, a big franchise thing. But, everyone, I haven't seen it, as I said, but everyone seems to agree that he's brought something fresh to the whole Rocky of it all. Okay, so let's move on to Marty Supreme, which the writers are Ronald Bronstein and Josh Safdie, who is the director. Safdie, this is an A24 film, nominated 9 times this year. So we also talked about it in Best Picture Preview, Production Design and Costume, Cinematography and Editing, Director. We'll talk about it today, in Director and Original Screenplay, and then in the final episode in Best Actor and Casting. And this is basically about the World Championship of Ping Pong related stress. This one cost about 60 to 70 million to make and made about 162.3 million at the box office. Again, high reviews. This is considered one of the overall favorites of the year. You can watch it yourself. It's to rent now, 2.5 hours long, so on the long side. This is the first, second, and third nominations for writer, editor, Ronald Bronstein, and the first, second, third, and fourth nominations for Safdie, who also was nominated for directing today. Have you seen like Uncut Gems, for example? That's the one everyone talks about with us. Okay, so that was a Safdie brothers film that got a lot of attention. I don't love it, but I see why I myself constantly compare Marty Supreme with it, because it's like very stressful. But what did you think of Marty Supreme?
It was super tiresome. I really struggled with this one. I did not enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the character. I wasn't really along with him for the ride on his journey. It was just kind of a real arrogant prick going around being a real arrogant, self-obsessed prick. And I don't know what the intrigue is. It's the arcane obscurity of ping pong. I think it's the stress. I think people, I liked this one a lot better than Uncut Gems. I would say I like this one overall. And, I won't spoil the ending, but I'll just say it has for me a more satisfying ending in terms of the character actually, I don't know, getting a satisfying moment, but then also seeming to learn something perhaps. And yeah, I hated that about Uncut Gems. It was just stress, and then it's over. I was like, what am I taking away from this? So this one, I enjoyed the ping pong world. I enjoyed like all of the filmmaking of it, all of like the capers. I
I dragged my family to see it in the theater, and I think I'm the only one who enjoyed it. And my mom and sister appreciated it, and my dad hated it. And I understand. I understand every reaction to this film. It is a big, cinema, but it's not necessarily the most fun watch overall. Now, we can't talk about this film's chances in this and the directing category without talking about the Safdie brothers controversy that's going on right now, where this is actually something from their film Good Times a few years ago, where there was an underage actress whose part ended up being cut, but she was kind of pressured to do on-screen nudity and was exposed to someone questionable. And this may or may not have played a role in the brothers deciding to go their separate ways in their career. But that is for whatever reason, or just because of all the attention the film's getting, that is coming up right now. And
Mhm.
I haven't been hearing, honestly, as much about it as I might have expected. But at the same time, I think it will make people less likely to vote for this film, especially in the two categories we're talking about today, writing and directing. So, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I can imagine that puts a twist on things.
Yeah. And the other brother, by the way, made the film I called out as my worst of the year. So I do think the interesting thing though here is, I talked about in previous episodes, especially in production design, the tech awards, and the final episode that's coming next, acting, which by the way, I have already recorded. I've talked about the fact that Ronald Bronstein, who's the other name here, he seems to be perhaps the driving force behind this film. Like he seems to be, what the line between Uncut Gems and Marty Supreme and the things people like about them, maybe it's coming a lot from him. It's interesting that his wife, Mary Bronstein, is the writer-director of another one of the most stressful films of the year, If I Had Legs, I Would Kick You. So I do wonder if people will, say like, okay, well, this is for Bronstein, not for Safdie.
Mhm.
But they won't, because they're going to vote for Ryan Coogler.
What would you say is rewarding about the writing in this movie?
I mean, like I said about that, I feel like there's an actual arc this time.
Mhm.
That he goes through all of this, and because he's an unlikable person, but I was actually personally rooting for him. I was rooting for him to grow up and become less unlikable. And, he does his series of chaotic, increasingly wild experiences do seem to give him something, a sort of closure and a realization. Um, and I was strapped in for the ride along the way as well. And I loved Odessa Zion, his, what was her name, Rachel, his
Mm.
baby mama.
His lady friend.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah. I suppose, I did find myself also rooting for him at the end, but I was fully aware that I actually wasn't rooting for him so much as I was unsettled by the idea that he was going to be humiliated, like profoundly humiliated as a human being. And I was more rooting, like, please don't let that happen. Please don't let that
Right.
happen. And so what I was rooting for was not him. And that made it even feeling that made me aware that I was aware that that's what I was doing, and not caring about him, but just like caring about human decency, or like the not wanting someone to bear that much, even though he was just an awful human being.
Yeah. No, I understand. And I can't say that like that's kind of how I felt. I guess I just was more comfortable with that, and maybe that's because I have watched more of these stressful, Safdie, whatever, Bronstein films with these unlikable characters. And it's not my favorite subgenre of film, but this one may be my favorite of that subgenre.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, let's move on to one that you've already said you liked more. So we have Joachim Trier and Eskil Vogt, who are nominated for writing Sentimental Value, which was directed by Trier. It's a Norwegian film, but it was actually a collaboration with France, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, and the UK. It's distributed by Neon. It's got 9 nominations. So we also talked about it in Best Picture Preview, International Editing. Today we're talking directing and original screenplay, and we'll talk about it again for the lead actress, supporting actor, and 2 supporting actress nominees. The plot is sisters Nora and Agnes reunite with her estranged father, the charismatic Gustav, a once renowned director who offers stage actress Nora a role in what he hopes will be his comeback film. When Nora turns it down, she soon discovers he has given her part to an eager young Hollywood star. Um, Now, yeah, there's a link in the show notes to when I talked about this during the Leiden International Film Festival episode for subscribers. It is a decent box office success for an international film. 7.8 million budget, 22 million from the box office. Again, superlative reviews from everyone, and you can rent it now to see it yourself. It's 2 hours and 13 minutes long. What did you think of this film? I mean, you already said you liked it, but you want to elaborate on what you liked about it?
Sure. I found that oh gosh, I'm so inarticulate about this, and because I'm also trying to be mindful of spoilers and not
Mm-hmm.
really ruining plot. But I think what they did super well is talk about really difficult emotional relationships within a family. And a lot of the movies actually deal with heavy emotions. But this movie dealt with heavy emotions, and a driving force is toward healing and reconciliation in a way that the others were not. And that felt very rich and meaningful to
Mm.
me. And by the time the movie ended, despite it being a little bit heavy, I felt really good, really warm. I think it was very well acted, very well cast, very well written. I mean, it had a good story and a good good dialogue. I really like the interaction between the two sisters and their back and forths. It was it was a real good film.
What do you think about the other categories that it was nominated in? Are you like, were there any favorite performances? It got a lot of acting nominations, especially.
Yeah. I mean, I think does she count as the lead actress, the Agnes, who's the actor
Yeah,
in
Renata
the actor in
Reinsve.
the movie?
Right. She's a stage actress
The
playing.
stage
Yeah,
actress. I
yeah.
think she was really great. I think Dakota Fanning was really well cast for what she
Elle
was asked to
Fanning,
do. Oh, sorry.
yeah.
So embarrassing. Elle.
No, that's
She was
easy. They're literal sisters.
but really well cast for what she was
Mhm.
asked to do. I maybe didn't give her so much breadth to work with, but she
Mhm.
really fulfilled her role well. And the father too, I think,
Yeah. Stellan
captured
Skarsgård.
his role.
Mhm. My favorite is the other sister, Inge Ibsdotter Lily. It's what's her name? Nora. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, no, I also I quite like this film. I think that there's a general warmth toward it in general. This is the first nomination, by the way, for Vogt. It is the second and third for Trier, who we'll also talk about in the directing category. His previous film that most people are most familiar with is Worst Person in the World, and that's sort of how he and Renate Reinsve, the lead actress, is sort of his muse. This is how they started to really get international attention through that film. So I I think that this film has both gotten more attention than expected this season, and then less attention than expected this season. Yeah, we talked about it in other episodes. It is both under and over nominated in certain categories. Like I would have expected cinematography, for example.
Yeah.
And you notice, like with the precursors, it's only won one of the writing awards so far for the European Film Awards. It was the biggest winner at the European Film Awards, which is not surprising, but I do wonder if it's going to underperform on Oscar night. If Yeah, because it's also was completely left out of all of the American Guild Awards, basically. Because yeah, subtitles, man.
Yeah, I mean it's tricky, and I do feel like there were moments when, for example, when she is reading aloud the screenplay of her father, and I do feel like there would be nuance that I would pick up if she was speaking my native language.
Mm-hmm.
But because she was speaking a different language, I I'm aware that there's those nuances of when people emphasize certain words
Mm-hmm.
or let certain words slip away that you miss a bit, and you know that you may not get the full impact of their acting or of what it is that they're saying. It's different when you're reading subtitles,
Mm. Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Although I think the writing shines through still in film since it's a multimedia medium. Hmm? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the framing of seeing the family history through the house.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. The
think,
house as a character was great. Yeah.
yeah.
Did you have any final thoughts on the writing of Sentimental Value? We will get to talk about it one more time.
No.
Okay. All right. This is a good spot then to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the last two nominees in this category are the only two films we'll talk about today that are not Best Picture nominees. So we'll be right back and talk about why.
There's a world of opportunity out there beyond the typical 9 to 5, where purpose and grit come together, where the American spirit and ingenuity are welcomed in places that could really use your skills and your experience. We're talking about the Peace Corps, with volunteers living and working in communities around the globe. It's been called the toughest job you'll ever love. Tough because it asks so much of you, to dig deeper, to get your hands dirty, to go that extra mile, to rise to the occasion and meet challenges head on. And the love part comes from being part of something bigger than yourself, from building bonds that last a lifetime. It's knowing your hard work transformed lives, including your own. After 65 years, the Peace Corps is still the toughest job you'll ever love. Explore opportunities in more than 60 countries, learn about benefits, and apply at peacecorps.gov/serve.
Okay. Now let's dive into let's dive into the one that was nearly a Best Picture nominee. So we have Jafar Panahi, who wrote in collaboration with Mehdi Mahmoudian, Shedmer Rastan, and Nader Saivar. It was just an accident, which Panahi directed. It is an Iranian film, but done in collaboration with France and Luxembourg, distributed by Neon because Panahi cannot get his films distributed in Iran. He does them secretly. I guess maybe we should start with talking about that whole situation where he's been arrested for making his films. He in 2022 he was arrested after he was sentenced in 2010 um, to a 6-year prison sentence and a 20-year ban on working. And he leaves the country to promote his films. But then he does go back to serve his sentence to make a point, and so obviously Iran was under a lot of pressure from this, and he went on a high profile hunger strike when he was 65 years old. And despite the fact that he's banned from working, he just keeps making films anyway and then releasing them in Europe or through European countries. So actually it was um, France who submitted this film to the Oscars this year. And he went to Cannes for this film to premiere, and it actually won the Palme d'Or, the biggest prize at Cannes. So people are like, oh, this is one of the biggest films of the year, because the Palme d'Or winner almost always becomes a Best Picture nominee at the Oscars. And when he left to go to Cannes, a new arrest warrant was issued for him. So he's just been traveling, promoting the film since abroad. But he said he plans to return to Iran after the Oscars to serve the new jail sentence. But now, of course, the current events in Iran really put a lot of question marks on everything. So with all of this, and with the fact that people just genuinely loved the film, it's got really high reviews. It's you can see it yourself on Hulu. It's an hour and 44 minutes long. It's about an unassuming mechanic who is reminded of his time in an Iranian prison when he encounters a man he suspects to be his sadistic jailhouse captor. And we should say it ends up getting together a group of Azerbaijani former political prisoners. And yeah, things go from there with some moral questions. And it did pretty well at the box office for an indie film. It made 10 million. I don't know the budget. So it was surprising that it only got 2 nominations for international. So we talked about it in that episode. And this original screenplay nomination, because it was expected to be a Best Picture nominee and other things. Did you know about any of this background or?
No.
So what did you think of the film without just, going in fresh without all of this context?
I really didn't like it.
Oh, no. Okay.
I found it to be torture porn. I mean, it's one thing to call it a thriller and that we don't really know what's happening, but at the end of the day, they've got this guy in a case in the back of a van the whole movie. It's I wanted to unsee it. I did. I mean, given the context that you're talking about, I can see why it's an important film or something, but I would not recommend this movie to a single person.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I liked it considerably more than you. Yeah, so by the way, I listed a bunch of names, and I should say the people that it's in collaboration with, it was written. 2 of them are former political prisoners who shared their stories, and then Saivar is another Iranian filmmaker who helped write it. So I know there's a lot of anger going into this, but I think, and this is a tough one to talk about, the spoilers with the spoiler policy. But for me, the ending is what stuck with me the most. And it's not, the ending is uncomfortable for my personal moral philosophy on things like revenge and the questions that it raises when you just get this final sound that you're like, oh, shit. But it's stuck in my head ever since. I don't know. I saw this a few months ago, I guess. So yeah, I do like the film. I do think it's a good film. I don't think it's necessarily a fun film. It's not really supposed to be.
No, it's not entertainment. Or rather, if you think this is entertainment, I please speak to someone.
But I see where all the love comes from. It did get 4 wins. It was the most awarded film at the Gotham Awards. Obviously it won Cannes. It's missed 4 times though as well, and it doesn't seem likely to win here. And it's been sort of, and probably there were more people who felt the way you did, which is why it did not get the nominations that it was expected to at the Oscars this year. Okay, all right. So let's move on then to the final film in this category is another Gensler one. Robert Kaplow was nominated for writing Blue Moon, which was directed by Richard Linklater, who is low-key a director I really like. This was a Sony Classic Pictures production. It received 2 nominations for screenplay and for Ethan Hawke for Best Actor. And the plot is forgotten but not gone. On the evening of March 31st, 1943, legendary lyricist Lorenz Hart confronts his shattered self-confidence in Sardi's bar as his former collaborator Richard Rodgers celebrates the opening night of his groundbreaking hit musical, Oklahoma. This is a small film. Don't know the budget. It made $3 million at the box office, which is not terrible. It's got some more mixed reviews. So critics, 90% of critics on Rotten Tomatoes gave it a positive review, but only 75% of audiences. And it's got a 3.6 on Letterboxd, which is decent, but not as strong as most of the other films we're talking about today. What did you think about this one?
It was another one that was pretty hard to watch because it was so dialogue heavy. I mean, we're just listening to this guy talk for such a long time. So I do think that I would not rate the writing of the story. I kind of I appreciate what they're trying to do in the sense of they're trying to give a portrait of a man over the course of like one life in his night, and I think they, I get a sense of his story and how it plays out, but it was just so much talking, and the whole idea is that he's a bit of an arrogant raconteur. He does talk too much, and other characters are looking between themselves like, oh God, do we have to listen to this? But then they keep giving time to that. They keep giving space to that. And so I'm not sure that I would award a screenplay for
right.
putting us through that to tell the story.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this is Robert Kaplow's first screenplay, and that's also first Oscar nomination. He's best known for, he had a coming of age novel called Me and Orson Welles, which was turned into a film, which was also directed by Linklater, but the screenplay was written by different people. So Linklater liked him enough. He's like, all right, let's do this one directly together this time. And, so I went in interested because, I'm a musical fan, and, I knew there was Rodgers and Hart before it came Rodgers and Hammerstein, and I never really knew why. I was just like, yeah, Hart died or something, but so I found it interesting to get a deeper look at like, Hart is kind of a difficult person, and Rodgers is just done with him. But it was a film when I watched it at first. I didn't think I liked it, and then by the end of it, I was like, I think I kind of like that. Just kind of like mildly warm feelings toward it. I'm not as passionate about it for sure. And I do wonder, like, it was very surprising to see it show up in this category. A lot of people were predicting Ethan Hawke for Best Actor, but I think that's also there's just a general love of Ethan Hawke, and they're like, here's a chance to award him. And I feel like somehow this slipped into this category off of the back of that, but I would have much rather seen something like Twinless here. It's just another film that got 0 Oscar nominations. The Injustice or No Other Choice. Well, that was an adapted, but anyway. There are other films I would far rather have seen in this category, to be honest. And I was a little scratching my head when nominations came out about this one. Yeah. I mean, it's won once for a screenplay award at the Boston Society of Film Critics, but otherwise it's hasn't gotten much attention in that regard, and I understand why. But it's not an unpleasant. Well, I mean, I guess, yeah, as you say, it's unpleasant in the sense that it's like talky, but at least there's no torturing.
Totally. No violence except
Right.
a man versus himself.
I'll say, I guess, so we have something called the Pukila scale where it's about, how emotionally and physically violent is it. I would say this is low on the Pukila scale. There's that. It's just, David would hate it because it's cringe. It's very cringe. It's very like, oh, dude, don't say, oh, no.
Yeah.
But if you want to see for yourself, it's on Netflix, an hour and 40 minutes long. So, okay, those are the five nominees again in this category then are Sinners, Marty Supreme, Sentimental Value, It Was Just an Accident, and Blue Moon. How would you rank these 5 personally in terms of the writing?
Ooh. I mean, my 2 favorites are clearly Sinners and Sentimental Value. two very different movies.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think I would struggle to choose between them, specifically on the writing. That's
Yeah.
but and then the other three, I mean, I guess Blue Moon gets picked after that because
Okay.
it was merely tiresome. Marty Supreme maybe somewhere after that because I don't know. It was original or something, but it
Yeah.
was just an accident. No, dead last.
All right.
I
That's fair.
can't in good
That's fair.
conscience recommend this to anyone.
Yeah. All right. So everyone knows that I love Sinners. Obviously, that's number one. Sentimental value, definitely number two. And then I think I am going to go. It was just an accident. Oh, no. Marty Supreme. Then it was just an accident. And then Blue Moon for me. Yeah.
Ooh, dead last for Blue Moon.
I mean, it's like I said, it was pleasant, but I just didn't get as much out of it as the others. You know, it was like I had an okay time with it.
I had an okay time.
Yeah, exactly. Which is not what you want to be saying about an Oscar nominee. So yeah. But I do think, and I hope I will be very upset if Ryan Coogler doesn't win for Sinners. So. Okay, so let's turn to adapted screenplay, where there does seem to be a clear front runner. I'm less happy about in this regard. Last year's winner of this category was Peter Strahan. Am I saying that right? Strahan for Conclave. And this year, the adapted screenplays, 4 of them are based on novels or one novella in there, and one of them is a remake of a film. So I've watched the film, The Begonia is a remake of. And I know a good amount about Hamnet, but I have not read that novel. I don't think I intend to. I think I know enough. I will link in the show notes a podcast that interviews the author and then also interviews a Shakespeare expert just about the history behind it. I find that really fascinating. So I know from that regard. Otherwise, I'm not. Oh, and a Frankenstein. Obviously, I'm deeply familiar with Frankenstein. But the other 2, I guess, then less familiar with. What about you?
Yes, you have more familiarity than I do. Of course, Frankenstein, that one's obvious, but you know, I've heard of Vineland, but I hadn't had any like experience with it or hadn't seen read it. Hadn't read any of the others. So what was seeing these movies did make me more interested in reading them. For example, I suspect I might like the novel of Hamnet more than the movie.
Okay, interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I haven't named the nominees. Let me do that real quick. So we have One Battle After Another, Hamnet, Frankenstein, Train Dreams, and Begonia. So let's start with the front runner in this category, which is Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another. He's also the director of the film. It's a Warner Brothers film based on, as you said, the novel Vineland by Thomas Pynchon. I don't think Thomas Pynchon, obviously super important and famous writer. I don't think I've read any of his books personally, like not for any good reason. It just hasn't come up in my life. So I am very curious. Yeah, I don't know how it compares. People say this movie is apparently considered a comedy. I don't necessarily consider it a comedy. His book is definitely considered a comedy. So that is
absurdist, maybe. I'd call it absurdist.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I would actually be interested in reading that book at some point, or at least one of his books. So if any listeners have any Thomas Pynchon recommendations, if you think I should start with Vineland or somewhere else, then please jump into the Discord or send an email to lorehounds@thelorehounds.com. I should read some Thomas Pynchon at some point in my life, right?
It takes a whole lifetime to read no Thomas Pynchon.
Yeah, it's taken more than 40 years so far. So this is obviously the other most nominated film of the year. So we've already talked. It's got 13 nominations at the Oscars. We've already talked about it in Best Picture Preview, Production Design, Cinematography, Editing, and Sound, Score, Direct. Today we're talking Director and Adapted Screenplay. And then it's got a lot of acting nominations. So we talk about it in the final episode for Best Actor, Supporting Actor ×2, Supporting Actress, and Casting. And the plot is, when their evil nemesis resurfaces after 16 years, a band of ex-revolutionaries reunite to rescue the daughter of one of their own. And David was really activated by this film and led 3 episodes, which are linked in the show notes, talking to different people about the film. It's one of the 2 biggest movies of the year. Warner Brothers has both, which is why it should not sell. This one cost somewhere between 130 175 million to make, got 209.3 million at the box office, faced some similar controversies to Sinners when it came out, but more muted, where people are like, why do you spend so much money on an original film like that? It's never going to make the money back. Well, there you go. Also, one of the most highly rated films of the year overall, although the public score on Rotten Tomatoes, like the critic score, 94% were positive. The public score, 85%. So that just shows maybe a little bit of people who feel like me, where I'm like, I don't know if it's one of the 2 best films of the year, but okay. What did you think about One Battle After Another overall?
Oh gosh, mixed feelings. So I think it's tapping into like this kind of absurdity or satire that reminded me a bit of Bonfire of the Vanities.
Yeah, okay.
In that type of and because but it didn't feel like it was playing that note hard enough. So actually it just felt like this very politically neutral take on really extreme things, which made me really uncomfortable, that it kind of wouldn't take a stance, but there was something in it for everyone. For example, just, it's all these left-wing, I mean, and it's safe to say it is so hard to take this outside of the context of the current political climate.
Right.
So the fact
and I
that
don't
there's
think
all
anyone is. Yeah.
No. But where we are now, this is here, or we are here, it's all these left-wing revolutionaries who are all really feckless and a bit stupid. And one is literally a cuck, he's a cuckold. It feels almost like it's written as right-wing propaganda, but it doesn't quite get there. And then there's also like the other side of that, like all these like hardcore right-wing white nationalists who have all the real power,
but are also stupid
and are absurd. But depending if you align with them, they may seem less absurd. And that's what I'm saying, that I don't know how hard they played that satire note. I think anyone on the left is going to see them as ridiculous because they're plainly absurd and stupid right nationalists. But actually, if you agree with them, I don't know that it hits that same note.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say you think it even leans conservative, because the reason why I push back so much on this film, and I know some people have heard me say this a few times now, is that I think that all these people are saying, like, this is the film we need right now. It's anti-fascist. I'm like, is it?
What?
Is it? I think, like, and I know I'm a broken record on this, but I think The Long Walk for me is my anti-fascist film of the year, because that really investigates, like, this is what fascism looks like. This is what it looks like to fight fascism, for better or worse, all the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. And this one was more of a farce. And I think on that sense, the film can be quite an enjoyable romp, through all these wild set pieces. And, we've talked a lot about that. There's a car chase at the end that gets a lot of attention. There's the whole Benicio del Toro bit that gets a lot of attention. And all of that is fun. But I bristle when people call this like what we need to talk about fascism right now. I'm like, it's mentioned. It's definitely a character in the film, fascism, but it's not a deeply drawn character.
I agree with you completely. I can't believe anybody would argue that this is against fascism. It is, to me, trying to have a revolution with white gloves. It is absolutely not trying to make a political statement. It is trying to appeal to everybody and say a little bit, all of y'all are stupid.
Right.
And for me, I can't get on board with that. So if I take it purely as entertainment, it's an entertaining movie. I loved the acting. I had a lot of, it was compelling. It really pulled me along with it. But that's only if I take it purely as entertainment. And if I, ignore all of the political place where we find ourselves, I find it kind of unconscionable that it doesn't make a stronger statement morally.
Did you see the Alex Garland film Civil War from a couple years ago?
I do not have the stomach for that.
No, that's fair. And I think you would have the same problems with it for the same reasons. And I'd say for me, that was like my Wagner Moore awakening. That's what I most fondly remember it for. And there's some really cool set pieces and all that, but it's the same thing where it comes down to being so pointedly apolitical that, I struggle with that aspect of it. But yeah, if you want to see it for yourself, it's on HBO Max. It's a whopping 2 hours and 42 minutes long. Although I don't know that I felt the length per se, although I do think that they could really tighten it up. And that's why I don't love it being in this category, because a lot of what I don't love about it comes down to the writing. I think that its strengths lie much more in other categories. So I'm a bit disappointed it's likely to win this. But behind all of this is the fact that it's a Paul Thomas Anderson film. And this is Paul Thomas Anderson's 12th, 13th for directing, and 14th for Best Picture Oscar nominations, but he has not yet won for anything. So there's this strong story going around that he's overdue because he's considered one of the greatest directors of the current era. I don't know. Are you a fan of his past films, of his other works at all?
Not per se, no.
I like them. I watch them all. I like some more than others. I'm not a fanatic, I'm not a passionate fan of his, like so many people I know in the film community. So I understand in the directing category, the last one we'll talk about, this overdue narrative, but I don't love that this film is most likely to win adapted screenplay.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. It's blown away the competition at all of the precursors. It's won 23 times, including Critics' Choice, Golden Globes, BAFTAs. The night before we recorded, it won the Writers Guild of America Award. So it's pretty much locked to win. But I would go for one of the others in this category, to be honest. I think there's 4 other great options where I think the writing is stronger. Let's talk about the other biggest film of this year. So the 4 big films of this year, obviously there's Sinners and One Battle. Beside that, it's considered to be Marty Supreme and Hamnet. Hamnet has 8 nominations. So we talked about in Best Picture Preview, Production Design and Costumes, Score. Today we're talking about it, Adapted Screenplay and Directing, and we'll talk about it again for Best Actress and Casting. It's most likely to win Best Actress overall. And this category, though, adapted screenplay, the nominees are Chloe Zhao, the director, and Maggie O'Farrell, the writer of the novel on which it's based. It is a US-UK co-production from Focus Features and Universal about, this is, I've talked about it a lot. It's the one about Shakespeare's wife and kids. It cost $35 million to make, made $93 million at the box office, has high reviews, but the critics' reviews, actually, I'm surprised. 86% of critics gave it a positive score on Rotten Tomato versus 93% of the audience. 4.2 on Letterboxd, which is an extremely high score. You can see it yourself by renting it now. It's 2 hours and 6 minutes long. And we can't talk about the ending, but we can refer obliquely to it. What do you think about this film overall?
I admire the ambition more than I admire the finished product. I kind of feel like overall it's just really heavy-handed about suffering. And I wish there was a little bit more um, depth, some things to like more some more emotions to feel aside
Mm-hmm.
from misery.
Hmm. I mean, I'll say, I mean, I'm kind of a broken record on this one too, since I've talked about it a few times now. But I'll just
Mm,
quickly say that I I was pleasantly surprised when I went in by the first half that, there is the sad thing doesn't happen until at least halfway through. I enjoyed like the courting aspect. I enjoyed the witchiness. I didn't expect
mm,
that going in, that Agnes Hathaway, or whatever we're calling her, Shakespeare, that she, yeah, why, and then that episode of Not Just the Tutors podcast I mentioned, the writer goes into, they ask her, why did you include this aspect? And she's like, well, here's the evidence from Shakespeare's plays that he has this knowledge that only someone with that sort of background would likely have. So where did he get that? Well, why not his wife? Um,
mm,
so I enjoyed those aspects of it. And then I just have to say, the positive feelings I have toward this film do in large part come down to the ending. And I think that's
mm.
maybe why general audiences responded to it slightly better than critics, because it leaves you with this, you know, I don't know, aching heart when you leave.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know that I share that. Maybe you and I could chat
Mhm.
after to
Yeah.
about what part the end or what the ending gave to you. Um, but no, I think what I appreciated it was more I agree with you, kind of the idea that she's this incredible forest witch, and it's really striking to see her portrayed as the far more interesting and strong person, and William
Mm.
Shakespeare more of like a kind of useless simpering Chad who can barely put two words together in a sentence. He's useless. And it was an interesting take on him that okay, maybe he can write, but he
Mhm.
certainly can't get it together as a person or as a partner.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You've seen Shakespeare in Love?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like in some ways she was almost responding to films like that, or that version of the story, which is about, William Shakespeare. He's married this shrew of an older woman. And so he runs away to London and falls in love there, and,
Mm.
Maggie O'Farrell's like, wait a minute, actually. If we look at when they got together, yes, she's older, but like, why would she be interested in him? Because he was the son of a debtor who had nothing to his name at the time, and she was from an established family. And, um, why would she? Yeah, she was like, she had, I don't want to say the upper hand, but she was the prize, basically,
Mm.
that and so it made sense to pursue it from that. And Maggie O'Farrell's like, why do we have to say that he hated his wife? Because we saw he kept sending most of his money back home. It wasn't unusual for someone to go work in London and send their money back to the countryside. Obviously, things like that still happen today. So I really appreciate that aspect, and I think I this one, I don't know, I have to think about it, but this one might be the one that I would vote for if I got a vote on this. Um,
Mm.
it's the first Oscar nomination for O'Farrell, of course, but it's the fifth and sixth for directing for Chloe Zhao. Chloe Zhao won twice, two for directing and for Best Picture she did not win screenplay or editing for Nomadland in 2020. So this is sort of welcoming her back into the fold. But she's not been winning the precursors for this. Mostly it's been going to one battle after another. And so I'm afraid I don't think this will be it either. Although, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think like if anyone could could challenge one battle after another. Maybe it's either this or maybe Train Dreams. Maybe there's enough love there. We'll see. We'll see. All right. There's the next three are the ones that are sort of the outliers in this category, less likely to win, I think, except for I said Train Dreams. So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about them. Okay. Now let's talk about first the one that I think we're probably all most familiar with the source material. So I think that kind of gives him a tougher job, to be honest. Of course, I'm talking about Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which he wrote and directed. It's a Netflix movie. You can watch it there. It's 2.5 hours long, and there is also I did not only a deep dive, which is linked in the show notes, but through there you can also link back to a deep dive I did into the movies from the 30s, and before that I did deep dives into the creation of the book. So I'm in all the way on this property. It's obviously based on the novel by Mary Shelley. This film received 9 nominations this year. Best Picture, Production Design, Costume, Makeup and Hair, Score, Cinematography, Sound, Adapted Screenplay, and Supporting Actor. The plot is, Frankenstein, but this is like more the Mary Shelley kind rather than, the Universal Monsters, James Whale kind. But Del Toro chose to focus in this version on daddy issues and monster pining. I do think it ends on a slightly more hopeful note than most of them. It cost $120 million to make, made almost nothing at the box office because Netflix obviously barely released it, Netflix being Netflix. This is one where audiences seem to have embraced it slightly more than critics. It's got a 3.8 on Letterboxd. And this is Del Toro's 7th and 8th nominations, because he was also nominated for Best Picture. He's previously won 3 Oscars for The Shape of Water, for directing and Best Picture, and for the animated feature for Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, not to be confused with Disney's version, which sucks. His version's good. Although I do have to, when I was just diving into his Oscar background, I have to say Pan's Labyrinth was nominated in 2006 for Best Screenplay and was robbed. Little Miss Sunshine won, which is fine. I mean, it's a fun movie, but come on, Pan's Labyrinth should have won that. Anyway, what's your overall feelings about Frankenstein, about this version of Frankenstein?
To me, this felt really typical of what I think are some of the common complaints about Netflix productions that, for example, they insist on you repeat the plot 3 times in the scripts because people are doing second screen watching or things like this. So for me, the writing of this was a weak point.
Okay.
It was, really overwrought, really spelled out. Like, he's not the monster, you're the monster. And
but the book's kind of like that too.
It may be, but this is an adaptation, so you have some freedom, right, to improve upon or not, to modernize, to make it that way. And even if your idea is to be true to the spirit and to be that literal and to really spell things out, it just, that for me is not what makes a strong screenplay. And as well, this whole setup that he's telling his story to the captain of this boat. So Frankenstein is telling the story of how he made his monster to the captain of this boat after having that monster has just killed 6 of his men. And I just don't buy that setup that somebody kills 6 of your men and you're like, oh, tell me your life story, starting with, well, my mother and father. Like, no, I don't care about your mother and father. Don't give me your nonsense. Like, what's going on here? So already they lost me a bit on the framing of why you're telling the story. Because who's going to sit around and just listen to some guy talk like that?
Well, so Mary Shelley was inspired by The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Coleridge, which is but he hadn't, it's true, in The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, he the Ancient Mariner in question, he detains a would-be wedding guest, but he hasn't killed his crew. They did definitely lean into more of the violence, I think, in that opening, which I suppose was probably, I mean, it's a typical filmmaking thing, but I could also imagine it being a Netflix prerogative, like, well, you have to open with something violent or people won't pay attention. So yeah, I have mostly positive feelings about this, as I laid out at length in the podcast about it. But I'm not as passionate about this film as I would have hoped, given my love for the source material and everything. But I think, as I said, it's just I've now this year alone I've watched dozens of adaptations of Frankenstein. I've reread the book twice. Um, it's just I went in expecting him to pick up on certain social justice aspects of the story. I don't know why. I think it's just because if it was Alicia's Frankenstein, the character of Justine definitely would have been in there and given a bigger focus. And that just shows my interest in the movie. And I just think that this story, because it's been adapted so many times, especially, it's such an interesting mirror into the psyche of whoever adapts it. And so what Guillermo del Toro was interested in was his relationship with his own father and son, including apparently this wild story I've talked about in other podcasts about where I didn't know this before, but his father was kidnapped at some point and held for ransom until Steven Spielberg paid the ransom. And Del Toro didn't know why this happened. And then, like, when he was close to death, had a big talk with him. And so that was that's why he gave the creature a chance. Sorry, the minor spoiler for Frankenstein. Come on, you know Frankenstein. He gave the creature a chance to talk to, and have there's some moments of forgiveness in this that aren't present in other versions of the story that I really appreciate. So I feel like I'm too close to this one to really evaluate it. I understand the people who are really passionately in love with this film. I understand the people who are like, oh, it's not what I hoped. And I still haven't completely sorted through my feelings about it. There's definitely a lot that I love. But I understand why it's not like people aren't rushing to give it this award.
Yeah. No, I think it had some nice style, but actually it was also really, to me, over stylized and overwrought. I have a lot of criticisms for this movie, but the writing is kind of one of them.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I mean, lots of violence too, lots of gore. I mean, it is about a monster, but still lots of like close-ups, lots of
it's
stuff
high
that
on the Bakila scale. Yeah, I also I interviewed someone who worked on some of the dead dogs. So there's a separate interview in the feed for anyone who's interested about practical VFX with Lee Romer, where he talks about his background and how he got to do that. But yeah, I'm less averse to gore, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to a film that really surprised me this year. Train Dreams, written by Clint Bentley and Greg Quaidar, directed by Clint Bentley. This film is also, it's available on Netflix now. It's based on the novella Train Dreams by Dennis Johnson, which I should just read or listen to or something. Apparently, it's only like, if you listen to it, it's only a couple hours long. This one Train Dreams received 4 nominations this year. So we also talked about Best Picture Preview, Song, and Cinematography. And now it also received Adapted Screenplay. It's about a logger who leads a life of quiet grace as he experiences love and loss during an era of monumental change in early 20th century America. What did you think of Train Dreams?
It did feel to me pretty classically traditional, or like this celebration of like folksy simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
There were quite a few moments that surprised me, and what I think this screenplay had going for it is it really knew how to work a silence, meaning this is a man of very few words and very simple words as well. There aren't too many there's these dialogues where people pass along their words of wisdom or their, one sentence insights into the way the world works. And so it's like these moments of quiet profundity that wasn't so inspiring to me, but it was
Mhm.
more just, for as long as the movie was, they used their words sparingly, and there was a lot more space given to silence. And so it gave the actors a lot more chance to kind of convince us in a more animal way. And I value that.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, this is a film that's a series of images and conversations for in large part. And I think the images side of the film across the board just spectacular, absolutely spectacularly beautiful film. The conversations part, I thought all of the acting was great. I actually really loved William H. Macy's. I would have loved to have seen him get more attention in his supporting role that I think was kind of important. This guy is kind of a lonely guy who makes a few deep connections in his life. And that I found beautiful. But then when it comes to the individual conversations, it comes down to, are you vibing with that particular conversation? Like some of them I found deep, and some of them I was like, all right, yeah, yeah, yeah. You just smoked a bowl and or, whatever. You think you've discovered the universe or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, the conversations were hit or miss for me. But overall, this film did leave an impression on me, but probably most especially with the visual unfolding of this 80 years of American history, from this perspective of being deep in the woods in, I forget, where is he, like Idaho or something. Um, yeah, you can watch it for yourself on Netflix. It's an hour and 42 minutes long. It is highly rated. It's the second nomination for both Clint Bentley and Greg Quedar, who were previously nominated for writing Sing Sing, which is a movie that I really enjoyed. I really liked years ago. I covered it in the Oscars coverage there in the screenplay category. I think I did want it to win adapted screenplay there. So I'm glad to see them honored again. This is so wildly different from Sing Sing. Sing Sing is about a group. It's based on a true story. It's based on a news article about this group of men, incarcerated men, who decide to put on a play in prison in Sing Sing. And it's just such a beautiful film. Like, you don't expect a prison film to ever be like a warm hug, and Sing Sing is very much like that. So I'd say this one actually is sadder than Sing Sing, but it's also like you can see some of the similarities, but it's also quite wildly different. I mean, I guess it is apparent. I hear it's a good adaptation of the book. I really should have just given it 2 hours of my life by now, but I have not, I'm afraid to say. Um, but I am glad to see it here. I'm less passionate about it here than I am about it. I think if it wins anything, it'll probably be cinematography.
Mm.
Yeah, but overall, I like this film. Yeah, I like this film.
Yeah.
Not as much as I like the last one, Begonia, which was written by Will Tracy, directed by one of my favorite all-time directors, Yorgos Lanthimos. It is a collaboration between the UK, Ireland, South Korea, and USA, a focus features film based on the South Korean film Save the Green Planet from 2003, which was directed by Jang Joon-hwan. This Begonia received 4 nominations this year: Best Picture, Score, Adapted Screenplay, and Lead Actress for Emma Stone. And it's about 2 conspiracy-obsessed young men who kidnap the high-powered CEO of a major company, convinced that she is an alien intent on destroying planet Earth. And this one did not do as well in the box office as they might have hoped. It barely broke even. I'm sure that renting at home has helped it get over the finish line a bit, and it's gotten, I mean, strong positive reviews, but not necessarily as strong. I think this is one that's more divisive of opinions for reasons we'll skirt around. It has a 3.9 on Letterboxd, which is very strong. You can decide for yourself by watching it on Peacock. It's an hour and 58 minutes long. Now, I'll just say we won't talk about what the ending is, but I will say that the ending is make or break it for a lot of people. The way it ends takes a turn at the ending. What did you think about this film overall?
I mean, now is the age of conspiracy theories, so it definitely felt of the time. It's so weird in a very positive way that I think I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed its bizarreness and the commitment of the characters to this very absurd script. So it's there's a little bit of what I think is unnecessary gore, but it definitely adds to the flavor, if you will, of the movie. But it's I like weird movies, and this to me felt like a weird movie. It makes sense to me that this was based on a South Korean movie.
Yeah. I watched Save the Green Planet first, so I kind of for this film, I wished that I had seen them in the opposite order because I think I would have liked I really liked Begonia, but I would have liked it even more if I hadn't seen Save the Green Planet first. And it's not just because it spoils things, because there are a lot of differences, but the South Korean version has a bit more absurdity. And this version, on the other hand, it is more of a deeper character study. So I do really appreciate that about this version. They both have the same left turn ending, but then the final screens that you are shown are different. And I prefer the Save the Green Planet version, what that leaves you with, which I can tell you afterward. Well, I'll just say it leaves you with a look back on the life of the main characters in a sort of video montage that just made me verklempt. I can say that, I think. So, yeah, I like this one. Yeah, I think that I was in this case, being familiar with the source material didn't help me, but I still think that it was a great written character study, although I am a bit disturbed and probably should be about, well, what does it say about conspiracy theorists, in terms of you think the question is the film interested in debunking conspiracy theories? And my answer is no, not necessarily.
No, indeed. I can't respond to that anymore.
No, I know. I know. It's hard to skirt around the ending there. But did you like the ending? Were you happy it ended that way?
I celebrate the movie's weirdness.
Okay.
Let me put it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, given the setup of the movie, meaning these two guys kidnap this woman and put her in their basement, you can play out scenarios in your mind for how this is going to end. And a whole lot of them are like really unpleasant. So I really didn't know where they were going to take it. So I guess that's something interesting to me about the way they chose to take it.
Yeah. This is the first Oscar nomination for the writer Will Tracy, but I do enjoy his past work. He worked on Succession, the TV show. Apparently he wrote The Menu, which is a weird horror foodie film that I rather enjoyed. So I'm definitely looking forward to more from Will Tracy. If he were to win this one, he would be only the third person to win for a film that is based on another film. The previous two winners are The Departed from 2006 and Coda from 2021. And I just saw there's a new adaptation. So Coda is an adaptation of the French-Belgian film La Famille Bélier. And I just saw there's a new Italian film coming out that's also an adaptation of that. and a Hindi musical. So that, Coda, if anyone doesn't know, it's about a deaf family with a hearing child. And it seems to be a story that just resonates. Anyway, sorry, digression. If this won, it would be only the third to win for adapting another film. I mean, again, I would rather this win than One Battle After Another. Would I rather it win than Hamnet? I don't know. Maybe. I like Lanthimos. How would you rank this category, adapted screenplay? How would you rank the 5 nominees?
Oh gosh. This
or
one,
who would you want to win?
Who would I want to win? Yeah. Oh gosh. The feminist in me wants the Hamnet to win on that principle, but honestly, it wasn't the screenplay that I thought was best. It wasn't it just didn't live up to me.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think Begonia is what I'm voting for. And after that,
I'll go with you on that. Actually, yeah,
yeah. And surprisingly to me, my next choice I think would be Train Dreams.
Okay.
When I first saw it, I had more criticisms of it, but now as I put it into all this context, I appreciate its silences.
Yeah.
And then after that, One Battle After Another, and Hamnet, and then dead last Frankenstein.
Okay. All right. One Battle would be my dead last in this particular category. And yeah, I guess I would most like Begonia, Hamnet, or Train Dreams to win, but they won't. And Frankenstein would be in the middle. Yeah. Okay. Well, so those are the 2 screenplay categories. Now we're going to take one final quick break. And when we come back, we're going to look at what did the directors do with those films? Because spoiler alert, all 5 directing nominees we've already talked about today. Be right back. All right, let's get into our final category for today, Best Director. This has been handed out since the very first awards in 1929. That first year, it was split by genre, but never since. Would you rather see like a comedy versus drama have those 2 separate categories?
I mean, just in terms of craft, I'm not sure how much that makes a difference. If we're looking at the craft of direction, maybe it doesn't really matter, but I could see the case to be made for both, actually. And I'm curious how much that would change things.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like, when you split comedy and drama, it always feels like dramas are sneaking into the comedy category and taking it away from real comedies. But if we had that split, we would have no other choice as a nominee, which is one of my favorite films of the year. And I continue to be mad about not getting any nominations.
Yeah.
So the way Best Director's nominees are determined is ranked choice voting within the director's branch. You'll hear me talk about that more in the acting episode. So that influences things. When it comes to the final vote for the win, only Best Picture is ranked choice voting. The rest is just, you pick your favorites and most tallies win. Last year's winner was, again, Sean Baker for Anora, which was the big winner overall last year. This year, the 5 nominees are Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another, Ryan Coogler for Sinners, Chloe Zhao for Hamnet, Josh Safdie for Marty Supreme, and Joachim Trier for Sentimental Value. So what's your overall thoughts on this batch of nominees?
I think my pick for this would be Sinners. Maybe Sentimental Value. I mean, but if Sentimental Value got top writer or best writer, then I might deal with that compromise too. But I think those for me are the best.
Yeah,
in terms of movies.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad to see Chloe Zhao here for Hamnet, but there are a lot more films directed by women last year that it should also be getting attention, or maybe I would even prefer to get attention. Chloe Zhao is the first female Best Director winner who received a follow-up nomination in the category. So just her being nominated a second time in this category is a win. I don't necessarily think she should or will take it this time, but she is the only woman of color ever nominated here. So just like, I would say do better. That's not a reason to give it to Hamnet this time, but just in general, do better. Yeah, I already talked about the Josh Safdie of it all. I don't think he's likely to win it for the controversy, and just people are kind of lukewarm about it. Sentimental Value would be my second choice in this category, but I think our best hopes for Sentimental Value to win things is international, of course, where it'll be between that and The Secret Agent from Brazil to win. And yeah, I think that's honestly an acting perhaps for Stellan Skarsgård. Yeah, but obviously it comes down really to, surprise, surprise, One Battle After Another versus Sinners. And One Battle After Another has the precursors. It's won 23 times versus Sinners hasn't won any Best Directing nominations, which I think is insane to me. Insane. Because everything that makes Sinners what it is Ryan Coogler's integration of all of the different creatives and crafts and actors and everything, and the way that, he makes his films with all of these people working together from the inception of it. And Sinners is what it is because Ryan Coogler made it so as the director. So he should be winning. Like, I'm tearing my hair out, but we already talked about, One Battle After Another has taken the awards at Critics' Choice, Golden Globes, BAFTAs, the Directors Guild Award, the Producers Guild Award. It's almost certainly going to win here. I understand in terms of like the let's reward Paul Thomas Anderson narrative. I understand that better in this category, as I said, than in the writing. And I'm happier with him winning in this category versus the writing. And I don't have anything against Paul Thomas Anderson. I think he's one of the greats. I just think that Ryan Coogler has made a film that we're going to be talking about still decades from now. And I would like to see that rewarded. So, yeah. I think if Paul Thomas Anderson wins this award, which seems likely, it doesn't mean that Sinners won't win Best Picture. But I think we've said in other episodes, if Sinners wins this award, that definitely means Sinners is winning Best Picture.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's kind of crazy in general for a vampire movie to be in these categories at all. Like, that to me is unexpected and speaks to how rich he made the movie beyond that, beyond just it being a silly vampire movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's humor in it, but it's definitely never silly, I would say. It's yeah, because it is so many, the vampires are metaphors, obviously. I mean, that's, I'm a huge prestige horror fan, and what I like about it is the way that horror allows you to create these metaphors like this, and talk about history and societal ills in more accessible ways. And I say this as someone who, has a background of I would be team vampires because, my background is like Celtic, poor Celtic people in the deep South on one side of my family. So, yeah, this goes back to Screenplay more, but I can't stop thinking about this film, and I've watched it 4 times now. Yeah, and so I have an unfair bias. But as I said, in this category with director, I just want Coogler to win because this film is what it is because of the way he synthesized all of the parts, which is the role of the director.
Yeah.
But Paul Thomas Anderson, fine, he'll get his Oscar, and then, I mean, I hope he makes. It's just I like other Paul Thomas Anderson movies more. And I understand, I said there's the politics of it. And I understand that, like, that's not necessarily how it works. Like, maybe he should have won for Phantom Thread. But he didn't. So now people are like, give the man an Oscar. And I understand that. But not when it's
Yeah.
up against Sinners.
Yeah. It feels I can't really, I have a hard time explaining why I don't root for it at all. I think it's because it feels to me like the good on paper movie. Like it's checking the boxes and it's like trying to I don't know. It, it feels like the natural win or something. And I'm like, I don't, but somehow if I ask myself kind of the questions of like, which of these movies am I going to be recommending to people? Which of these movies am I going to still be talking about? Which of these would I use as a case study for to illustrate the way filmmaking has been done in a really good way? I mean, I could point to Sinners, I could point to Sentimental Value. One Battle After Another. I think one thing that it does well is shifting. This is I'm using very clumsy language for this, but like it's shifting perspective in the sense of, we follow different characters through this. I was saying I would kind of like to read the Pynchon novel to get a sense of how it's different, because I'm willing to believe that the story is all about the guy, and I think the director probably made a choice to like kind of shift between these different characters and give us more stories than just one person. Like, how does this affect lots of people? How do they see it? And I think that is something that I like about it.
Yeah. It ends up being about the daughter.
Yeah. So I like that.
Yeah. One Battle, I think, is more successful as a daddy-daughter movie to me than it is as an anti-fascist movie.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Because I'm still with you on the page. Like, nothing anti-fascist about this.
Yeah. So how would you rank this category if we try to, I mean, I know it's hard for us to let go of the writing side, but if we just think about the director, the person who is at the helm of the film, bringing all of the pieces together and sort of responsible for the overall success of the movie, how would you rank these 5 nominations?
Okay. Top pick, Sentimental Value. Second pick, Sinners.
Okay.
Third pick, One Battle After Another. Fourth pick, Hamnet. Dead last, as always, Marty Supreme.
All right. I'm obviously going Sinners top pick. I'll go Sentimental Value second. And then I'm going to go Marty Supreme, then Hamnet, and then One Battle. All right. But it's between Sinners and One Battle, and probably One Battle wins. We'll see. We'll see. If Sinners wins, I will be dancing. I hope that I will be doing lots of dancing.
Yeah, I agree. I'm rooting for Sinners.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was a super fun conversation, Katherine. Are there any other films from 2025 you loved that you want to shout out?
Only one movie really comes to mind, and this is not really high cinema, but was an unexpectedly feel-good sentimental movie, which was the movie Nonas.
Okay. We've talked about it because actually David has been to that restaurant. And it was nominated for a couple things, but it was also, one of them was definitely the TV movie Emmy. I loved it less, but it's fun. Yeah. It's a fun feel. Do you want to set up what it is?
Oh gosh. The story, based on a true story of a group of grandmothers who start cooking Italian food together with the help of a guy who basically opens a restaurant full of nonnas.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a ragtag team of nonnas cooking and finding value and purpose again through cooking and connection through food.
Yeah. Very much a feel-good movie. Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a fun one. And remind us, you talked about it at the beginning, but remind us again what you're up to and where people can find you. And of course, these links are in the show notes.
Well, I continue writing, editing, and taking pictures, and you can find more about what I'm doing on my website, octobernight.com.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. And I'm glad we see eye to eye on One Battle and Sinners.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you again to Catherine. And for anyone who's interested or who's caught up on these films, stick around after the outro, after the closing music, for a full spoiler discussion of these films. We talk about all of them except for Frankenstein and Blue Moon with full spoilers. So we can, all the punches we were pulling while we were having the conversation, we can just speak openly about them and what we do and don't like about some of the most iconic endings in the Oscars race this year. So it makes sense that so many of them have landed here in these categories, in the writing categories specifically. And for all of you One Battle fans, sorry if we were a little tough on your movie. Just want to say there are lots of fans elsewhere in this coverage. See, for example, the last episode about the tech categories where Dakota called it his favorite movie of the race. And of course, David's 3 deep dives. And by the way, he also did a deep dive into Civil War last year, the other film that I brought up as being similar in setup and, the apolitical bent. Anyway, you'll find that linked in the show notes. And Hamnet fans, we just released a separate short What You Watchin' episode for Supercast and Patreon subscribers. That will be linked in the show notes. And in response to that, Marilyn wrote, and this also responds to a conversation that Catherine and I had in this episode. She said, having just listened to Elysia and David's What You Watchin' about Hamnet, I think I would say now that Elysia, you and I have different ideas of what the word witch or witchy means. Certainly, many witches also identify themselves as green women, but not all green women are witches. I guess that's the closest I can come to it. If she were a witch, to my mind, I would have expected Agnes to be doing full and or new moon rituals. Beyond the rejection of the Christian God, I felt no sense that there was any divine being in her practice or her belief system. There was certainly capital P power, and it was in the raptor and the forest and the earth and all of those things, and I loved it. But there were no beings who embodied that power. Mind you, I only watched it once, so I might have missed references to the mother and so on. So I think I overspoke when I said absolutely no witchcraft there, but the strongest I could say would be that it is witch adjacent. Which, witch, W-H-I-C-H. Fair enough. I think that we do have different definitions in what we mean by witchy. I do tend to be looser in definitions in general, and also maybe I place less emphasis on, embodied divine powers rather than just the divine power being of the earth, which is more of like what we saw in Hamnet. So maybe I respond more to the type of green womanness, as Marilyn calls it, that we saw in this film. And I actually do think she probably does moon rituals. Just because we don't see it, I don't think she doesn't do it. But for any subscribers who haven't got a chance to yet, you can check out that new Hamnet coverage for more discussion on this topic and the rest. And you will, of course, in the spoiler section, hear more discussion of the ending of Hamnet between Catherine and I. I get a little weepy again. I will also link in the show notes a witchcraft episode that Marilyn and I talked more about these topics in detail, from the history of witchcraft to, what that might look like today. That one is also for subscribers. And Catherine shows up there as well for some Macbethian cameos. But as for the Oscar series, there is one final pre-Oscars episode coming later today. It is the acting and casting episode. I just want to give you at least a few days to catch up on whatever ones you want to, because the Oscars air this Sunday, March 15th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So they air in the U.S. on ABC or Hulu and like ITV in Britain and various places around the world. There's a link in the show notes where you can look up where it airs in your country. And we will be doing a live watch chat on the Lorehounds Discord. So you can find, of course, the link to the Lorehounds Discord in the show notes. We'd love to have you join us there to talk about this and anything else that we're discussing. But we will be gathering in the Live Watch Awards channel there, probably about an hour before the awards when the red carpet is going. And then after the ceremony, next week, David and I will have our traditional wrap-up episode where we respond to the ceremony and the results and share our best picture rankings, probably with a few extra films thrown in this year. Now, of course, as always, there's lots more going on in the network. Check out the weekly The Pit coverage. There's more One Piece coverage coming. The Bone Temple, the subscribers, you have even more coming. There's the Warehouse Wars coming this weekend for Second Breakfast, and the March of the Millennials poll is almost closed. I think Mean Girls is going to take it. We need more Oh Brother love. Anyway, if you're interested in finding out more about any of that, you'll find also a link tree in the show notes with links to the Supercast and Patreon options. Same options, 2 different ways to get access. And of course, things are busy throughout the network. Properly Howard has just kicked off their Newlywed season, which is just basically films one of them hasn't seen, with The Running Man, where they compare the original Running Man to the new movie released this year. And Nevermind the Music just released a Shania Twain episode. So if you enjoyed Mark and our Nevermind the Oscars music episode that was just released a few days before this, check out what he and Nicole are up to on the Nevermind the Music feed. And we've reached our musical thank yous moment. Some people told me a while ago that they liked when I used music for this, so I keep doing it. But let me know if you want me to stop or if you want me to continue. Jean's not here to ask me to call out the title of this one, but I'll do it anyway because it's in honor of Hamnet, in honor of Agnes. It is Magical Forest. Anyway, thank you all for listening to this nonsense. Thank you in all seriousness, for your ears and for your engagement. You know the drill. If you enjoyed this and you can think of anyone else who you think would enjoy this, it's an enormous help if you share this with them. Leave a kind review wherever you're listening. Just a special thank you, as always, to our Discord server boosters, Aaron K., Tiller the Thriller, Duve71, Athena Ajalea, Lestu, Nancy M., Ghost of Perdition, Radioactive Richard, and Adrian. And thank you to all of our subscribers, especially to our highest tier, the Lore Masters, Samartian, Michael G., Michelle E., SC, Peter O.H., Nancy M., Duve71, Brian 8063, Frederick H., Sarah L., Gareth C., Andra B., Kwang Yu, Nathan T., Sub-Zero, Aaron K., Dally V., Mothership 61, Gnarls, Kathy W., Listu, Jeffrey B., Elysia U., Ben B., Scott F., Stephen N., Julia F., Collie S., Ilmariel, Paul K., Rocky Zim, Jessica A., Red Zippy, the TCS, Dopamini, Catch It, Eleanor, Mrs. Tennant, A.C. Wilson, Eli W., Cassie K., Chumbaruni, Katia, Josh Liu, Paint and PDX, Corey G., Quinch, and always last, Adrian. Thank you all so much. And a reminder again, after the closing credits, there will be a spoiler discussion of Sinners, One Battle After Another, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, Begonia, Train Dreams, Sentimental Value, and It Was Just an Accident. Stick around or be warned. Bye.
The Lorehounds podcast is produced and published by The Lorehounds. You can send questions and feedback and voicemails at thelorehounds.com/contact. Get early and ad-free access to all Lorehounds podcasts at patreon.com/thelorehounds. Any opinions stated are ours personally and do not reflect the opinion of or belong to any employers or other entities. Thanks for listening.
Okay, welcome to the full spoiler after party. So just fair warning, we are about to unleash full spoilers for films we've talked about. That is, again, Sinners, One Battle After Another, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, Begonia, Train Dreams, Sentimental Value, It Was Just an Accident. All right. Yeah, it's hard to talk about the writing of these films without talking about the ending because they're so important to these films. Which film do you want to start with? Which ending is standing out to you the most?
Let's talk about Begonia. Let's talk about Begonia.
Okay. All right. What did you? Okay, so the ending, just in case if you want to be here and get spoiled, but you haven't seen it yet, the ending. The question is she an alien? And obviously, it's supposed to look like he's just a conspiracy theorist who is murdering people, as it turns out. But then it turns out, yes, she actually is an alien, and she goes back to her planet and destroys the world, or her spaceship or whatever. What did you think about this ending?
Okay, in the service of putting conspiracy theorists in their place, obviously this was not a great look. But in terms of just making a really weird movie, I think this was a really successful ending.
Yeah. So I'm going to spoil the ending of Save the Green Planet as well, which is pretty much the same. I would say the one big difference is, so the end of Begonia, it ends with like, they don't blow up the planet. And Save the Green Planet, they blow up the planet. You see like, and then it goes to a montage of the two main characters, and just like they're living their lives, and it just leaves you with this like, oh my gosh, they led whole entire lives before everything went to hell. There was beauty in that world that was destroyed. And here it's more like there's like a a gas of sorts that just kills all the humans, but not the animals or plants or anything like that. So actually, that one, it is more about saving the green planet, because the planet will be greener without the humans mucking up everything.
Right.
But it was also, it felt more, I don't know, like in a way nihilistic because all of humanity's gone, but in another way, strangely hopeful because now the planet will survive better.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a little bit of an overreaction on the part of the aliens to just call their mission a failure and to be like, well, we tried, bye.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess what I found interesting or picking at is this question is, it doesn't take a moral stance, but in a way that I find more interesting than, say, One Battle, where it's like, yeah, he was right, but at the same time, he was also kidnapping and murdering people, and you find like their dismembered body parts and stuff in this storage room.
Yeah.
And you know, it's sort of like he was still wrong somehow, but and also just because he did this thing to her, that was the final straw that ended up condemning all of humanity. Like if he hadn't done this thing. But then again, she was being an awful, like she was an executive who was bringing out the worst in humanity with her role as a powerful woman. So it is so complex. There's a lot to dig into there.
Yeah. But as a work of absurdity, it's still fun. It's entertaining. It's outrageous. It's so I don't take the morality of it all too seriously.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, and I would say I would recommend the South Korean film to you because it's even more absurdist.
But another thing that I found really shocking is the fact that Begonia and It Was Just an Accident have the same exact plot.
Oh, I never thought about it, but you're right. You're right. They do. But yet you liked Begonia much more because of the absurdism?
Yes, because it had more emotions in there than, I mean, because at its, just in terms of the plot, these two guys kidnap this woman. They, kind of abuse her. There's like all sorts of like dark stuff, basically the same stuff that's happening in It Was Just an Accident. But Begonia uses the language of like of sci-fi, of fantasy, of absurdity to hit those same notes. And It Was Just an Accident just looks at it head on in a very hard way. So, it was clear that I liked one movie and I did not like the other.
So what I thought was interesting with the ending of It Was Just an Accident is, so you learn that this guy who tortured all these people when they were political prisoners, he has a prosthetic leg that makes a distinctive squeak. And so in the end, I am a radical forgiveness kind of person. And in the end, they decide to let him go. They're like, what do we do with him? And ultimately they decide, let's let him go. Let's move on with our own lives. But then in the last frames, one of the people is there and you hear that distinctive squeak, which kind of implies he's back for his revenge and they should have finished the job if they wanted to survive. And that I found a very unsettling ending, but one that I've been thinking about ever since.
I agree. It was haunting.
Mm-hmm. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about Begonia? It was just an accident?
No, maybe just I like the idea that Begonia kind of really kept us going until the end, meaning they kept pointing out like these really absurd things, or not pointing out these really absurd things, but putting the characters into these really ridiculous situations, like trying to convince that guy that if he put antifreeze in his mom's IV sac that would cure her, and like watching him actually do it. Ugh. Really go all in on his delusion. Things like that. They really kept pushing the limit of where is this guy's credulity? Like, where is the line of his credulity to just absorb this fantasy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that it was just an accident has something more to say, to really think about. But I think Begonia is definitely the film I'd rather rewatch. It's a much more fun time, and it's an easier one, as you said earlier, to recommend.
Yeah.
Now, the other big one with the ending we needed to talk about was Hamnet. You were surprised that I responded, that I said it makes your heart ache, or how did you respond to the ending of Hamnet?
I mean, not particularly emotionally, meaning it hit for me the same emotional note as the rest, which is like this kind of never-ending suffering. I mean, finally, when we're watching this play of Hamlet, we get some sense that maybe this idiot Shakespeare has some depth to him, because before then we haven't seen him demonstrate any depth or even intelligence so far. And so I do think that in that we finally get some sense that there's something more going on between the ears with that guy. But I'm curious what for you gave you that feeling.
Yeah. So it's a very sad film, obviously. And I knew that going in. I expected that. And as I said, the sadness started later than I thought, but it was at some point, by the end, I was getting a little annoyed with her, like that she was, well, it was very much, it was a film about how a mother deals with her grief and her frustration that her husband seems to just be running away from it or ignoring it, or that leaving her alone in it. But she's also at the same time pushing him and everyone else away, because she's like, no one gets to share my grief. It is my grief, but also, why aren't you feeling it? And so what this film suggests is that his way of coping with it was to write the play Hamlet. And then, so you see this scene playing out from Hamlet, and we should point out that Hamnet, the little boy, is played by Jacoby Jupe, and Hamlet, the actor on the stage, is played by his real life brother, Noah Jupe. So they intentionally look alike. It was kind of a fortuitous casting, but then they're like, oh, that's great. Let's go with that. Let's lean into it. So they do look alike for a reason. And you see her, like, her first experience in a theater, and she like doesn't know what to do with the crowd. And I was like kind of annoyed with her. I'm like, chill, lady.
Yeah.
But
it made sense too. Yeah. Because she's just a forest bumpkin. Like, she doesn't know anything about the theater and how you're supposed to act.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, and then you see, she's been struggling. Like, why doesn't her husband share her grief that she's not letting him share? And then as this play plays out, she realizes, like, oh, this is him coping with his grief. And this play that she was kind of annoyed with him, going off to do is actually honoring their son. And then, it's kind of cheesy, but just like, the way the entire audience reached out toward Hamlet as he died on stage. I don't just all of the faces of especially the women in the crowd. And you think, especially in that time, how many of them also lost sons and how many of them are, I'm getting a little emotional just talking about this. How many of them are watching this play out and taking some solace for themselves in it too. And being, just that he lived, we remember him. He lived well. We honor him. And just that everyone reaching toward the stage just made me think about, and the music swells, obviously, they got me with that score. We talked about it in the score episode, but they just this fact that we are humans so separate from each other in our grief. But at the end of the day, most of us do understand grief. We have experienced grief by a certain point in our lives. And so it is one of the things that should connect us the most. And this finale was a moment of recognizing that. And I think that's why, for me, it was so powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was so much about because that scene is about watching her process not only what she's seeing, but also through the lens of what she thinks her husband thinks about all this, right? And so it's like that all those layers going on at the same time as we're watching the play. But I found myself really unsure what it was she thought her husband was thinking or feeling about their son through Hamlet.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that wasn't obvious. Because it is a tangential overlay with what happened, to try to apply the death of Hamnet to the events of Hamlet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I don't know. I mean, I understand through the actress's performance that there was some reconciliation, some idea that maybe she was seeing her son as a grown man, but why? Like, just if I try to put myself in that, like in the plot of Hamlet and in the story of Hamlet, like what was it that she was connecting? Just the grief, the idea of grief.
I mean, yeah, I suppose this is something you might like better from the book, because I do think this is a central thesis of the book, and they lay it out in the text on screen at the beginning, like Hamlet and Hamnet had an almost same, the spelling was,
they were
not
interchangeable,
fixed. Right, and so I suppose that a central thesis for her is that William Shakespeare wrote this play as a response, and then she's trying to. So we saw some teases in the film at the end about what sort of connections he might be making. And yeah, I've been doing some deep dives into, like, by deep dives, I mean I've been like watching some adaptations of Hamlet lately for various reasons. And I think it's a bit of a stretch if we are looking at the reality of the history. But I really love the idea, and I feel like the film at least does a great job of positing that, where just based on the film alone, I'd be like, oh, I can believe that.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to suspend that aspect of disbelief on my part, just for what I feel is the emotional payoff of the film.
Yeah. I must say that one of my personal pet peeves is watching TV or movie or whatever, a scene where characters whisper to one another. And so we, the audience, can hear them because it's recorded. But it is so obvious that nobody else would be able to hear them.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So like the actor for Hamlet is like whispering. It's like, nobody would hear you. Project. You're in a theater. I immediately lose my connection with the fiction because it's like, you can't do that. You're not in a movie. Stop acting like you're in a movie.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Yeah, there was some dramatic license taken there for sure. I think though, for me, the most rewarding as ending though, as I teased, is Sinners, that sort of mid credit thing where we get the jump forward in time, and now so Sammy has grown into Buddy Guy, and he's lived an entire life as a blues musician, everything he always wanted, and then the one other survivor, or the two other survivors of that night, Stack and Mary, show up, and they're still vampires. And wearing their like 90s sweaters and stuff. It's total 90s fashion moment. And you know, he says like, you know, my brother, the one thing he requested is that I leave you alone and let you live your life. And so I've done that, but now I know your life is coming to an end. So I'm here to offer one last time. Do you want me to turn you? And he says, no. He says, I think I've lived a good life, and I think I'm just about done with it, and I'm okay with that. But then as Stack and Mary are walking out the door, he says, you know, one last thing. He says, I wake up with nightmares still all the time, all these decades later, about the events of that night. But before the sun went down, that first half of the movie, that might have been the best day of my life. And then the music goes. They get me with the music all the time. And that for me, like, it was a film that I was already really into, but for me, that's what really solidifies the writing aspect of that film.
Yeah. I didn't find that last scene so meaningful because I was too caught up, honestly, in the idea of, wait a minute, he's alive? So wait, the two brothers were fighting, and then like mid-fight, the guy's like, I'm about to kill you, but tell you what, I'll let you live if you leave that guy alone. And the two of them managed to get away before dawn hits, when it was like, that was just before dawn. And he found that girl, and they both managed to get away when all the other vampires burned. It was a little bit of a, wait a second. No. How did this happen?
So they weren't there in the final scene. So they got away, but they weren't there like gathering around watching Remick go after Smoke and Sammy. They were already gone. So they had plenty of head start to get away from there. What I find more unbelievable is that the other vampires stuck around. And I guess it's because of the hive mind thing. And for some reason, maybe because of his connection to his brother, and because his brother is like, you know what, I don't want to kill you. I don't want you to kill me. Just get out of here. That maybe that gave him a bit more independent thinking in order to be like, grab Mary and go. I like that part didn't bother me. I was more like, why are the others hanging out there? Like, the sun's coming up. Get inside. What are you doing?
Yeah. The thing is, I was fully on board for the hive mind thing, but then it didn't make sense that, wait, shouldn't he know that those other people slipped away if they did? And like, why were they able to? Like, why was he able to pull that girl out of her spell? Like, it just didn't quite add up, except to like kind of.
Oh, see, I definitely didn't have that problem at all. I don't think that is a problem personally. But I think it is interesting also, like when we look at Smoke, the other brother, that it looked like he was the survivor, but ultimately he is not the survivor because he decides to lie in wait to fight the KKK, which they don't.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily need to do, in terms of, because the juke joint's over, obviously, but he needs to do it for himself. And what I was really struck by when I watched this with my mom is that, at the end, it comes down to forgiveness again, where he's taken out everyone else, and there's like the KKK leader on the ground, and Smoke's dying, and he's starting to see visions of Annie and their child. And there's the question of like, should he just be like, let bygones be bygones and go reunite? And my mom's like, no, kill him.
Double tap.
And I'm like, this is it shows this offers even to, a white woman, there's some catharsis and like get the KKK guy. That's even like, even though, okay, here's my question for you. Would you want to join that particular brand of vampires with the Irish jigging and parties and all that?
No, I'm not a hive minder. I mean, if I could try it with a guarantee that I could get out, like I'm curious what that experience would be like. Just as a separate human being, I am curious what that experience would be like. But I mean, it's a little bit Borgian in the sense like you can't you can't undo that. I mean, Picard got out, but I kind of feel like once you're part of a hive mind, you don't exist. And it certainly seemed like it wasn't a pure hive mind because there was a boss, and that doesn't sound attractive to me.
Yeah, that is the question that when we were talking about this film in our breakdown, that's a question that especially came up, is like, how much is Remick in control of the others? That is an excellent question. But it's interesting to contrast with Pluribus was a TV show this year that also had a hive mind mentality. And there, the people were just overly peaceful, just like we won't even kill a plant, even though we're going to die if we don't eat, But for some reason, it does feel like in that version, they lose their individuality completely. Whereas it feels like in this version, they still have some individuality, but also are lending it out. Like they still remember, I don't know. So I am more attracted to the Sinner's Hive than I am to, say, the Pluribus Hive, and definitely not to the Borg. For the record.
Just in case there's any hive vampires out there listening.
I don't know. Are there any other endings from these films that you wanted to discuss?
Maybe just sentimental value. Because I found the end scene where the daughter is acting out the scene that we've heard described earlier in the movie, and we can really see the way she can embody the depression that the other actress just couldn't quite embody. And we can see this action that is, the father, it's based on the father's life, but he keeps saying that's not based on, it's not based on my mother. But the way we see that acted out, and the fact that his daughter is doing it after she previously didn't want to do it, it feels so healing. So like such a space for both of them to connect with each other, with, his memory of his mother and his sorrow, his hurt, his unresolved hurt from the way he grew up. It felt so healing and purposeful. And I found that really just so rewarding to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree that it's a film that's more subtle in its arc, but very rich and rewarding in that regard. In terms of, I mean, I think that it's getting a lot of love from Hollywood because it's about a filmmaker. Also.
Yeah, totally.
But it's also just, I think it's easy for anyone to identify with because it's about a family. It's just about, for me, it's the Nora character, the Inge Ibsdotter Lilius character, who I just keep thinking about her, how she was a child actor for in her father's film, and I know obviously that's not her in the flashback. That's kudos to that child actor whose name I do not have at hand. But just like that phenomenal performance. The fact that the movie can just take a minute, and I talk about it in the Tech Awards episode more about the editing choices in that moment, where they actually, the editor cut back on it because he's like, we can't stay away from Agnes that long. But yeah, just knowing that she had this incredible talent like that as a kid, and played this role in this seminal film. And then she's the one who did not grow up to become an actor like her sister. Her sister takes more after her father. And so she's been kind of not discarded, but just kind of, it feels like she's a bit of an afterthought in the family, but also the one who's holding them together.
Yeah. I thought the dynamics there were so wonderfully portrayed for that reason, because it felt really like full dynamics. You could see each of the relationships, what was between each of them. So it felt really strong.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was really beautiful. And just like the little moments there, like I think of one moment when Agnes comes over and they're like packing stuff up in the house and stuff. And there's a vase that Nora has set aside for herself. And Agnes takes it because Nora wanted it, basically. And Agnes just doesn't, so Nora just is just like, yeah, whatever, par for the course, Just fine, just take it. Yeah. And the little moments like that, I think, are where sentimental value really shines. Yeah, it's not a showy film, but it's a expertly crafted one.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So we'll talk about one battle. What did you think about the revelation of that Leonardo DiCaprio's character was not the biological father and actually the racist was?
They set that up from the beginning, right? But not at the beginning, but like they set that up. So it's not like it came as a big surprise, because that obviously that revelation is like the one that introduces the most conflict. It's a conflict for the Colonel Lockjaw. It's a conflict for the father and the daughter. It's just, and so that it feels like, well, it has to be his, because for the story that adds the most conflict. Another one of these like kind of things that's a bit checkboxy for me, where it's a bit, if you want to reverse engineer a story, it's a bit like, yeah, you choose that because it adds the most conflict, not necessarily that it
feels
has to be that way. Yeah.
I thought there was something nice about it in the sense that, like, I always think of a quote I saw or something that's like, any man can be a father, but it takes something special to be a dad. And at the end of the day, obviously, like, it's horrifying, I think, if you find out that your biological father is fascist, who, with a kink for your mother. Versus the man who raised her and loved her entire life. And, she chooses that father. That's her real dad, obviously. No question, I would say, from any perspective. But I liked that. That's why I think this movie is better as a daddy-daughter story than it is as any political discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of parent-children stuff, like Train Dreams, that goes on this whole journey with his daughter who disappears, and this is apparently from the book where they change it slightly for it, but he finds like a kind of wild girl and helps her like with set a broken leg, and then she just disappears out the window and he never sees her again. I'm like, oh, come on, give this man a break. That's my only problem with Train Dreams. I'm like, let him have something. Like, he meets Carrie Condon and I'm like, well, maybe they'll at least get together. Nope.
No.
But I love that it ends with, just in terms of, as I said, I think the film for me is maybe at its most successful in tracing this development of this part of America,
Mm.
And then he goes into town and sees the moon landing, and just how that must have blown his mind, because you see where he came from 80 years before that. And just thinking
Yeah.
about what that generation lived through, especially like we all live through change in our lives, but that feels like a period of intense change.
Yeah, I mean, probably by the time we're that age, and if we look back at the developments of our lifetimes, they are likewise staggering. I mean, internet, smart devices, and AI, and now we're just middle-aged, right?
Mm-hmm. But in the regard of, this is where Marty Supreme is slightly more hopeful, because in this one, he gets to have the kid at the end, and it makes him realize everything else that he's been engaged with is kind of bullshit. And he got his win at he didn't get to enter the Japanese, the international ping pong world finals, whatever, in Japan, but he got to have a meaningful unofficial win on camera. So he got that win. And then his real win, though, is going home and embracing his family.
I hear what you're saying. I don't quite read it with the same amount of victory, in the sense that he's still a piece of shit. Like, I don't think that just because he cries over the birth of his kid, that he's suddenly developed into a good person. I mean, because we even see, like, he walks straight past his mom and like, hey, like, he's still a total piece of shit. Like, I'm glad that he got this little dose of humanity that makes him feel like to acknowledge the kid as his, where he previously wasn't even doing that. But no, I'm under no illusion. I feel like he, he's still gonna be a real monster.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Speaking of monsters, any thoughts about Frankenstein or Blue Moon? I mean, I kind of already hinted at the Frankenstein ending. It's hard. I mean, come on, everyone knows Frankenstein, but any thoughts on those two films?
No additional thoughts.
That's fair. That's fair. What would you say is of these 10 movies, what is your favorite ending overall, or a couple favorite endings?
Sentimental value, for the reasons that I already described. And Begonia. I mean, both because it cements the weirdness.
Right. I'll give my two favorite endings to Sinners and Hamnet, with an honorable mention for It Was Just an Accident, because it stuck in my brain.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm glad we did this postscript, and I'm sure that there are people who have watched the movies are grateful for it, because it's been a lot of skirting around what actually is it about. So if you haven't seen these movies yet, watch them.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Katherine.
Thanks.